Hello, and welcome back to Don't Press Play, the podcast where we press play so you don't have to. Today, we're heading into the sewers of Derry to talk about a movie that made everyone terrified of red balloons and clowns again. Yes, that's right, we're talking about It from 2017, based on the iconic Stephen King novel and directed by Andy Muschietti. This film took childhood trauma, supernatural horror, and one deeply unsettling clown and turned it into a cultural event. But does it hold up? Is it just nostalgia with jump scares, or is there something deeper lurking behind the teeth of Pennywise the dancing clown? Grab your yellow raincoats, avoid any storm drains, and don't trust anything that floats. Let's roll the trailers.
When you're a kid, you think the universe revolves around you. You think that you'll always be protected and cared for. Then, one day, you realize that's not true. Because when you're alone as a kid, the monsters see you as weaker. You don't even know they're getting closer. Till it's too late.
Here, take it.
My grandfather thinks this town is cursed. That all the bad things that happen in this town are because of one thing. An evil thing.
Bill, if you'll come with me, you'll float too.
I saw something.
The clown. Yeah, I saw him too. You'll float too.
What happens when another Georgie goes missing? Or one of us?
You'll float too.
Are you just gonna pretend it isn't happening like everyone else in this town? If we stick together, we'll win.
So, my relationship with this film, I remember when it was first coming out, and I remember trying to go to watch it at the cinema, and I didn't get let in. They didn't believe that I was over the age of 15. I obviously didn't have ID on me because I was 15, so I didn't get in to watch the film, and I was so depressed about it. I was so bummed out because this film was like a cultural event, like it was the time to be alive. I think it was because it was it and because it was a clown film. Kind of up there with it's kind of up there with doll movies. Like anytime there's a creepy doll film, like it brings out like the non-horror fans to the cinema. So like it was coming out and people that aren't even horror fans are like, I need to go to the cinema because it's Pennywise. I think when it's such a big franchise like that, or a big name, yeah, it brings out the worst in cinema. So I can't honestly, I'm kind of glad that I didn't get to go see it in cinema because I imagine the state of some of the cinemas of like the audiences that people come and see this film. I remember when I went to watch Scream 5 in the cinema, every single one of my screenings was ruined because it was just full of people that was like, "Oh, it's a Scream film, we'll go watch it at the cinema." And they just have no cinema etiquette, and it was absolutely ruined every single time I went to watch Scream 5 in the cinema. So I assume it'd be the exact same with the It film. I'm just gonna guess it's full of 15-year-olds just on their phones watching TikTok at full volume whilst I'm trying to watch this film. So it was probably a blessing that I didn't get to watch this film in cinema. However, it did mean I was kind of like dodging spoilers, like literally fighting for my life when this film came out. Like I'd be in math class and like all the people from my school would be like, "Oh, has anyone seen this new It film?" Like, "Oh, it was scary." And then just like, I mean, I already knew what happened. I'd seen the original, but yeah, not the point. I was not looking forward to any spoilers, and obviously, I did my best. I think when I finally did get to see this film, I really, really enjoyed it. But again, I think it was just because of the hype around it. And also, it was like a merchandise crazy. Like, it was like Pennywise Mania in 2017. Like, everything was it. There was like weird it mugs, there was like lanyards, t shirts, shoes, anything that they could put Pennywise on, Pennywise was on. So I think that also didn't help the case that I thought this film was actually really good. And I'm not saying it's awful, but I'm just saying with fresh eyes, rewatching this film now, has it stood the test of time? I don't. Well, here's my thing. So, I don't think it's a bad film, and if you were to compare it to the miniseries, it's obviously made a lot better. But however, saying that, I've recently started getting into Stephen King's books, and I've only recently started to like proper read his work. So I've read Stephen King's It. I think I've read it twice now. And if I were to say which one would be the best adaptation, I'm honestly gonna say the miniseries. Not because like I think beat for beat, the book is better translated in this 2017 one. However, I think that the Stephen King It miniseries gets that vibe of Pennywise a lot better, and it and the story and the kids and the Losers Club. I think that the miniseries is so much better, and honestly, I think it's just the vibe that it brings. It's the very 50s, it's very like Cold War, almost medical, I want to say, of just kind of, yeah, clinical just grossness that this film has, compared to this 2017 one, which I think is way more kind of Stranger Things vibes and kind of appealed to that generation with obviously the Stranger Things coming out at the same time. They obviously reworked it for a marketing technique that way, which absolutely fine, do what you have to do. But if we're going for translation to the big screen, I genuinely think that the It TV miniseries did it so much better. And I don't know if that's just because everyone kind of has like a generational trauma with the miniseries. Obviously, it was just like in everyone's nightmares. Tim Curry as Pennywise, just absolutely nightmare fuel. So maybe it's because of that, but I personally think that the miniseries does it a lot better, putting Pennywise on the big screen. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that today. We're here to talk about the 2017 film, It. So, breaking down the film itself, it follows the Losers Club, a group of outcast kids who band together to confront an ancient evil that feeds on their fear and on children. You probably know him as Pennywise the Dancing Clown, but he's actually a cosmic shapeshifter that takes form of whatever scares you the most. Now, the opening scene in the book is actually a hate crime, but in the 2017 adaptation, it's obviously the iconic Georgie scene. Now, again, I think beat for beat, this scene in the book and this scene here is obviously done a lot better than in the miniseries. I think it's a lot more drawn out, but I think Pennywise in that gutter and the CGI they used, I just think this film is I just think this film is an example of where sometimes practical effects are just a lot better, because I think that clown attack in the sewers, I think, put quite a lot of people off, like, from the start, and that's where a lot of this film gets its negativity from, is kind of like, I think, when it came out, a lot of the people were kind of saying that it looks like a Snapchat filter kind of thing, where Pennywise bites his arm off and things like that, which I kind of understand. But yeah, I think in the opening scene, it just I would have preferred maybe more of a practical effect. And this is kind of something that is is an issue with this film. I think a lot of the things they relied on kind of like CGI sort of things when practical effects could have probably been used a lot better. Um, so yeah, that's kind of all I had to say on that opening scene. Obviously, I still prefer the miniseries opening scene. Sorry. So yeah, and then George's disappearance actually becomes quite a plot point for this film. I don't think it's like that in the book. In this film, it's kind of the reason why they want to go and play in the Barrens, and it's kind of the reasons why they're down there is because he wants to find Georgie's body. So he builds kind of these tunnels from the hamster cage, which guys, that's not how you look after hamsters. I'm just saying. So there's the tunnels that you can get for hamsters, and he builds like an exact replica of the Barrens and then floods it with an action figure to kind of see where the body would go, and the body would end up in the Barrens, hence why the kids then go to the Barrens, which is a nice touch, and I think you have to think as well, I think in the book, sometimes it's not going to translate as a good A to B point for the film, so obviously they just had to rework it there a little bit. It's fine, it works. What it does work well with, though, I have to say, is the adults in this film are really good at, like, ignoring the kids and not seeing the danger. I think as well, when it's I think it's the bit where Ben is being attacked and Henry's carving his name and there's people in the car see him and just drive straight past, kind of stuff like that. And that obviously it works with in this scene the dad kind of loses it with Bill, and he's like, your brother's gone. He's gone. He's gone. Like the believability and like the understanding of these kids just isn't there. And that does work really well for this film. I have to give them credit for that. And kind of following on from that, the group's kind of dynamic and friendship. They are great. They're a great bunch of kids, and obviously their humor is great. But I don't know. To me, it doesn't have that core, like, friendship vibe that it does in them, and I can't keep comparing it to the miniseries, but I just am. In the miniseries, I genuinely believe that, like, they're friends, whereas this one, it does just feel like an episode of Stranger Things to me, and I really do struggle to kind of break that away, and I think it doesn't help because I think one of them is in Stranger Things as well. So, yeah, it's not great, but, they're not awful. They work absolutely fine, but if I was to nitpick, I would have kind of liked them to be a little bit, more like friends, especially because in, like, the miniseries and stuff, you see them be kids a lot more. You see them kind of, like, building the den and stuff like that, whereas in this film, it's kind of just straight into, like, them all being terrified and them all being scared, and it's all about hitting the jump scares and hitting horror, 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 which, I get it's a horror film, but if you've got the book is such a complex book, and it's such a complex kind of emotional side, especially with the kids. And that Losers Club is so core to who they are, and that's support because no one else believes them. And I think it is quite important that we see them as children because then we can kind of feel more fear for them. And say in the miniseries, for example, you see them kind of have that childhood, that innocence, and then we have the horror as well, which is kind of why we feel so bad for them. And I don't get me wrong, I still feel bad for these kids, but I just think had we seen them kind of be a bit more childish and have a bit more fun together, I think it would have worked a lot better than what did appear on screen. Now, I think my favorite character from the group out of this film is Beverly. Beverly's character is so cool. She is such a bad bitch. And I think they got Beverly completely bang on when adapting her from the book. Like, this is the Beverly that we were promised. She smokes, she's cool, she isn't really afraid of anything. And I'm not saying she's not in the miniseries, that she's a great Beverly as well, but I just think that in this one, she just kind of holds her own so much more, and she is a lot more than just kind of a romantic interest for the male characters in this film. I think she is like her own character within her own right, which is absolutely fantastic. And what I do have to say as well, the dad in Beverly's dad. I'm just gonna grab a drink 1 second. is that Beverly's dad in this film, fucking the creepiest fucking bitch ever. Hate, hate, hate. There is a lot more of a darker tone of kind of like sexual abuse in this film, which is very prevalent in the book as well. So, do what you have to do with that. But yeah, I can't really say that he was a great character because he wasn't. He's fucking mortifying. But obviously, yeah, I think Beverly's dad they got pretty much bang on as well. But Beverly as a character, she is just incredible. The scene with the blood in the bathroom, like when she cuts her hair, she die like she is just yeah, she's an absolute brilliant character. And I also love the progression of her character into chapter two. But we'll get on to chapter two when we do chapter two, so keep an eye out for that one. Now, I think that was different, however, is kind of things like the Neighbor house, which was kind of a haunted house on the street. I'm gonna see if the Neighbor Street was in the book. I don't think it was. Let's have a look because I can't remember. I read the book so long ago. Oh, okay. So the book is in the house. And it is where they confront Pennywise. I probably should have known that if I read the book twice. Anyway, so the Neighbor House Street is the old creepy house. And my favorite part of this scene is when Richie goes into the house and there is the missing kids leaflet in there with his face on. That so good. So fucking good. Stunning, stunning, stunning. One of the worst scenes in this film is when they find Betty Ripson's shoe and her name's in the shoe. And then one of the kids makes a joke of, "Oh, fuck, like, she's running around there with one shoe on." It's like one of those things, like, it's not funny, but it is funny. And yeah, absolutely fantastic. So now, obviously, we have to address that with Pennywise in the room. Bill Skarsgård in this film is absolutely fantastic as Pennywise. Such a great Pennywise, such a great presence. Like, honestly, no notes. He really did that. Love him as Pennywise. Is it as good as Jim Curry? Obviously not. Tim Curry is Tim Curry, like, you can't be Tim Curry, so you can't even compare the 2, but he does hold his own, and it must be hard stepping into a role like Pennywise because, it's not like Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees or Leatherface where you can truly wear a mask. It's one of those characters. It's a bit like Freddy Krueger, like, you either do it or you don't, and I think with Jackie Earl in a Nightmare on Elm Street remake, he did, not a lot of people liked his performance, and he got quite a lot of slack for it, whereas I think Bill Skarsgård came into this and honestly really held his own, and I think his performance really paid off, so, yeah, absolutely no notes on Mr. Pennywise there, just so good, and I also loved it when they made this film, the kids hadn't seen Pennywise until they were shooting, so, like, the fear must have been really real. I mean, if I would have seen Pennywise even if I was working on a film for Pennywise and I saw him the first time, it must be kind of, like, breathtaking. I know Jenna Ortega did an interview recently, and she said the first time she saw Ghostface, like, in person, she was, like, really scared, and it's like, well, you must be because it's like, these are, like, horror icons that you've only ever seen on screen, and then to, like, be in the same room as the actual one, like, it must be a bit scary even if you know it's not real, but good for them, good for them. Now one thing about this film as well is that obviously it is so much more a coming of age film. Like I think even though it's a horror film, I would class this as a coming of age film because it kind of brushes up on like all those themes like puberty and like young love and kind of like just growing up, being an adult and like the fear of growing up, the fear of like loss of life. Like it's all about life and growing up. And I just think it's that coming of age film that's wrapped up in horror, and that's, I think, why it works very well for this one, and why it kind of, it does lean so heavily into that Stranger Things crossover energy. But I think that's also because in 2007, I don't know why, but everything was like 1980s themed. So kind of, I don't know, it was one of those kind of, it was the place to be for horror, I think, at the time. And I think leaning into that, like, coming of age vibes with the Stranger Things vibe is just the vibe for that film, which I don't know, I personally think it works for that film. You did what you had to do, you know, it makes the most sense to kind of, if you've got, like, Finn Wolfhard in the film, it makes kind of sense to kind of do what he's good at as well, since he's such a big name. So kind of like, go for it, pop off. Now, this I think is the highest grossing horror film, not ever, but like in a while. And I think obviously because it was such an icon of horror, kind of like stepping back in to cinema. So obviously, Bish Bash Bosh, Pennywise broke the box office. Now there obviously was a sequel to this, It Chapter Two. I'm glad they did split the film into two parts. That does make sense because obviously it is such a huge book. Um, However, I think people struggle to connect to It Chapter 2 because it's the adults, and it's the same with the miniseries as well. When the adults kind of get involved, it is a bit harder to connect to them. I think, like, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like the second half of the miniseries is perfect, because it's absolutely not. Um, but yeah, I think that's just people do struggle to connect with it when it is else. But that's because like I said, it's such a coming of age film, and you kind of really like see these characters grow up, and you're there with the characters at such a horrible time in their lives, and it's just so much more profound when it's children. So when they are all grown up and they're adults, you still root for them, but it's less kind of, I don't know. You don't I don't know. I don't really know what I'm saying. I'm just saying when they're adults, I care a lot less. So I think it's always going to be hard to adapt the second half of Stephen King's It, mainly as well because in the book it just goes really crazy with like with Chud and like the aliens and the spider, and like it's so crazy, and the turtle, it's the universe, and like it's so out there and it's so bizarre that I think the best filmmaker in the world would struggle to kind of adapt that into a story. So, you get what you're given, and they did what they had to do. So it is what it is. So did it hold up on my rewatch? Like I said, it's a great film. It's very well made. The story is absolutely fine. It's there. Does it feel like a Stephen King's It to me? No, it doesn't. It just feels like Stranger Things to me with a clown. And even though, yeah, it's the exact same story as Stephen King's It, to me, it doesn't feel like Stephen King's It. And that's just because I think the TV miniseries for me is the perfect adaptation for it. Now, that's just my personal opinion, so please do not send me hate comments. My favorite scare in this film, um, don't know. That's a hard one. Probably in the Nebot house with the doors. It says like safety, not safe. Oh no, it's when Pennywise is in the fridge and he comes out of the fridge. I think that was absolutely brilliant. Brilliant. What makes Pennywise so iconic? I just think I think it's Tim Curry. I think Tim Curry's Pennywise is what stapled him as kind of as the icon of horror that he is, and I think anyone that plays him is kind of just building up that other legacy of a character. So yeah, it, has always reminded us that childhood is terrifying, and that the monsters we face as kids don't always disappear when we grow up. And I think especially that's why I kind of really resonate with the story of it. It's like, I've had a bit of a shit childhood, and it, it's kind of about the fight you have as a child, and how even as you grow up, those kind of fears, those anxieties, the shit you've been through, it does come with you, and it does follow you into adulthood, but it's what you do as an adult, and it's if you decide if that is your story forever, or if you're gonna fight it and kind of leave it in the past. So that's kind of why I love it as a story so much, and it's just kind of, I don't know, just yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode on the Don't Press Play podcast. If you enjoyed this little episode, then please consider giving me a review wherever you listen to podcasts, downloading this episode, sharing it with a friend, letting them know that you enjoyed this podcast. Leave me a comment, leave me a like, whatever it is you want to do, interact with me. Just let me know if you enjoyed it. It'd make me very, very happy. Yes, thank you so much, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.